back to this. You mentioned earlier before the FaZe offer sort of came through, you also did have some opportunities to be a competitive player in 2014, 2015. Because at that point you're only like two or three years out of the game. Surely it must have been possible to come back. So what were some of those offers? Is there any beans you can spill on us?
Yeah. I mean, the best offer I had back then was to reunite with my former teammates in NIP. There was serious talks about me going back there.
Hello my friends, Quack in the edit here. Unfortunately there are some audio issues in this episode which has resulted in us having to cut a few answers, and you may hear some popping from RobbaN's mic here and there. It gets a lot better in the second half of the episode, and I hope you still enjoyed the very interesting and surprising things RobbaN had to say, like the absolutely crazy opportunity he had to play in 2015. Like, that was insane. But please bear with us through this pilot episode and know that the recording of the later episodes has been a lot smoother. We are in large part learning as we go with this one. But for now, just sit back and enjoy hearing from one of the greatest players of our sport. Cheers! Welcome everyone to Leetspeak by Elite Clan. I am Quack.
I am Tony.
And today we are joined by one of the greatest Counter-Strike players of all time. Please welcome RobbaN.
Hello guys, thanks for having me.
Right. Actually, I guess probably amongst one of the greatest Counter-Strike coaches of all time. He's on one organization the whole time in Global Offensive and CS2. That takes some hard work.
I've been around for quite some time. It's kind of hard to realize that it's been almost like 20 years. Makes me feel a bit older right now, but it's been a long journey.
Yeah. And we're actually going to try to start at the start of that journey. But before we do that, we have one question that we always like to ask all of our guests, which is your top 3 favorite Nordic players.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I played and coached a lot of different players during these 20 years. It's very hard to pick 3 guys, but I have to say 2 players that I have coached lately will be olofmeister and Brain. Those 2 guys are definitely gonna be on that list. And then I have to pick the favorite player that I played with back in the days is Forrest. So I will go with those three guys.
Very
good 3.
Yeah, very.
But it's very hard to pick 3. I could probably say 25 names if I could, but yeah, I'll stick with those for now.
Yeah, you do have a very storied career playing with a lot of very good players. So we are going to try to start at the start or even before the start. You sort of started your career in the early 2000s, maybe 2003 or so. So before everything sort of broke through, before you started having successes at like big LAN tournaments, what was the path into professional or competitive play in the early 2000s like?
I mean, holy shit. Like, I remember the first time I was in school and a guy told me, a friend in my class told me about this game, Counter-Strike. And I mean, I didn't play much games at all back then. I did other weird stuff. But I went to his place and they had like a small LAN because there was no internet back then. And they played Counter-Strike and it looked really fun. I tried it out and I started to play it a little bit. And at some time I went to his place a few more times, started to play, and eventually I got internet at home, and that's when it really kicked off, when I really got stuck into the game. You know, it's very addicting in the beginning. I remember even only being on internet was addicting, but playing Counter-Strike in the beginning is something that I will never forget, because it's like the only thing I had on my mind. When I woke up, I wanted to play until I went to bed, basically. Not really healthy, maybe, but it was so fun, and it was only a hobby. I still did, school back then as well, so it was very hard to make everything work. But eventually I got into a team, and we started to play for fun, and that's why I started to play Counter-Strike, because it was so fun, and we had a blast playing, me and my friends. But I sucked in the beginning. I was so bad. I remember I played with, I think I used knife for like my first 3 months when I played Counter-Strike. I only played with knife because I couldn't kill anyone. So I was running around and trying to knife people. Yeah, pretty weird. But
It's like the perfect excuse for not getting any kills. You're like, guys, I'm playing with my knife.
Exactly.
Guys.
Yeah. I'm not taking it too serious, guys.
It was really hard. Some of my friends, they play some other shooting games, FPS games before Counter-Strike, and I hadn't really. I only played like Red Alert or something like that, like before Counter-Strike. Red Alert and maybe some Warcraft. The first game, and that's the only thing I played before, I think.
Right, so you go into competitive play. Your big break, you're on Begrip. Begrip for our international audience. You're on Begrip.
Begrip for your American audience.
Yeah, you are on Begrip together with Forest and Tentpole. At this point, you guys are.
Yeah.
It is 2005. You guys are pretty much unknown at this point. And you, what was this team like? Like coming in as today, we mentioned these names. People who are listening are gonna think these guys are legends. But what was that team sort of like?
I mean, I had to go one step back before that because I played in a team called Embrace before, and that was also with Tentpole and Forest. And we played a Swedish LAN called Optahack in Gothenburg, where we played against some of the established players and teams. For example, like Spixel with Wally and the Polish guys. I can't remember what they were called back then, but Neo and Taz and those guys. And we beat probably 3 or 4 good teams at that LAN, and that was the first time where I had any kind of success at the LAN. Before that, I was basically called out to be like an online god, like everyone else back then. But like that LAN, that changed a lot because we proved to a lot of people that we could play good on LAN. And after that, it's when I got the offer to go with Begrip to Korea to live there for like 2 months. And that was a totally different story because I played with, the team in Embrace was not so experienced, but when I joined Begrip, they had ESIC and Calippo as well, who were established, experienced players and had this structure in a team that I never felt before, with in-game leader in ESIC and extremely good team player in Calippo, and then the young talent Forest, who many people already saw back then as one of the potentially best players in the world, or could become back then. So we had a really strong team, and we went to Korea and we won the first tournament. The first international tournament that I ever went to, we won. So that was pretty.
Yeah, for those who might be unfamiliar with that event, that was the WEG Masters event in 2005. It was in Seoul in South Korea, and it lasted for about a month, which the way
it's unheard of in esports terms.
Yeah, I mean, we have that now with like ESL Pro League, but all of the teams who go there are full-time players. Like they are there for with a salary, and like they structure it in a very different way. So for me, thinking about what 2005 might have been like, how the hell did that come about? Like how do you end up? Because at that point, was there a salary involved in Begrip at that point?
We had a salary. You can't really call it salary, I guess, but we got some money. But it's funny thing is like if you ask any of the players in the top 20 now, like, hey, you're gonna go. I think we were in 6 weeks in Korea. If you ask anyone, you're gonna go 6 weeks Korea, everyone will say, "Fuck off." There's no one that's gonna be there for that time. But I remember when they asked me, I'm like, hell yeah! I got so excited because I'd never been in Korea before, and it was such the tournament was like a really good tournament with many of the best teams in the world that I never played against. So I was really excited going there, and we had a practice room in the hotel, which every team is having now these days at hotels during tournaments. But back then, that was like a new thing. So super cool experience. We had so much fun. It was a bit rough in the beginning because you played 1 match a week, I believe. So I think we the first 3 weeks we played like a group stage, and we only played 3 matches for 3 weeks, and it was like MR12 best of 1, I think. So we played basically 30 minutes of official games a week. But yeah, still insane experience, and that's probably one of my best memories still up to this day, being there.
Yeah, you were right. MR12 best of 1s. I looked up this event. I am too young to have been watching this live, so I had to look up all of this in post. Tony, I don't know if you were even familiar with this event before this.
Yeah, totally. I fall asleep thinking about it. Yeah.
But yeah, you come out of the gate. You are one of the 3 guys who people didn't really know about by the looks of things. This is like the first time people start to notice that maybe these guys are at the top. You come out, you win every map as far as I can tell. You even had a couple of 13-0s if Liquipedia has the correct records here. So yeah, quite an amazing event it must have been. How did that invite come about? Like, was there a qualifier, or was it just that somebody said, "Do you want to go?"
I think Begrip had a spot, and I was not supposed to go. I think I got the last spot in Begrip. Forrest asked me if I wanted to take the last, 2 weeks before the tournament or something like that. So we didn't really practice much before. But I mean, I think first of all, Seoul is a beautiful city. So just being there was amazing, and we played so much Counter-Strike. Everyone in our team were just playing all the time, and it was so funny. We played like A maps, like probably 10 hours a day against like all the players at the hotel, all the players that they were played A maps all the time. And yeah, I mean that tournament, I still smile when I think about it. It's a really good memory. And back then it was 50K first prize. Was huge. It was not so many tournaments that had so much money. Also, winning the first tournament we went to, I think we got very hyped. Our team got like, holy shit, I think we got like number 1 on the rankings on Gottfrag or whatever it was called back then. And we still had to prove ourselves, but I saw as a really good team. And I think we only played one more tournament with that team, and I think we went to CPL in Dallas like 2-3 months after that, and we didn't play so good, and then we disbanded the team, I think. But yeah, crazy times.
Moving on to that disbanding, actually, that's the next sort of item. You're correct, yeah. You disbanded shortly afterwards. Forrest and Tentpole moved on to form Fnatic. And at that time, you sort of disappear. And I think looking back on your career, there have been a couple of times where you seemingly take a break from competitive gaming. And this might have been the first time. So how was there an option for you to keep playing with those guys who moved on to Fnatic, or how come you ended up being out of the game for a while there?
I can't remember after CPL Dallas how long I took a break. Remember I joined, or I started to play with NIP like under the radar, so it was not officially back then, but I didn't really take a long break, maybe like a month or two after Begrip, and then I started to play and practice with NIP.
I was listening to, funny enough, like not even in preparation for this episode, I was listening to Forrest speak on the same topic about how he had left, but it almost became where Tentpole, I think, got the offer from Fnatic, and he was thinking about going, and then took Forrest with him, almost like took him in order to be comfortable, to have some sort of comfortability in the team, and then Forrest was kind of just like, wow, okay, yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure that was how it went down, or at least close to.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. But as you said, you started playing with NIP. So this was already going on, like starting in the beginning of 2006 ish.
Yeah, and that was a crazy year as well. Like NIP was also a totally different story, because I felt like maybe we didn't get lucky in Begrip, but the players in NIP was a different thing. Everyone was really good. I could feel it was more serious. It was more. We had an internet cafe that we played from in Stockholm, and I basically lived the whole year sleeping under like a table with Wally. Me and Wally sleeping and grinding Counter-Strike nonstop, and that. I think that was my most successful year. We won a lot of tournaments with NIP. We were the best team in the world back then, I believe, a few times together with some of the teams, but we won a lot of tournaments. And I mean, playing with Seth and Wally, who were like both really, really good players. And then eventually also I played with Heaton in the beginning of NIP, but then we changed, then we took Spawn as well, who was like one of the most skilled players. We had like an insane lineup when it comes to skill, and we had a lot of fun together. So that team was really, really good. And that showed on our results. I think we had some really good wins and some tough second places, if I remember it correctly as well. But good team, fun, a really good year. I can't remember how many tournaments we won, but there was a lot.
Yeah, there were a couple of wins. In a lot of these events, when I look back, I did see that you actually beat Fnatic quite a few times in these finals.
I don't think we lost.
You didn't lose a single one?
I don't think so. If I'm wrong. But I don't think we lost to Fnatic, no. I remember like every time we played them, we were like very confident beating them that year, yeah. But Fnatic became really good the year after that, if I remember correctly. That's the year when they like played much better than they did 2006, I think.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a lot of names here. You mentioned a lot of very good names. There are a lot of very good names that have crossed paths with you over the years. I'm gonna ask a difficult question right now. Who do you think is the best player you played with?
When it comes to skill, I mean it had to be Forrest. I mean it's not only because of skill, because Forrest had the whole act, right? He had the personality, the communication, the skill. He was a great teammate and also like incredible good and very talented. And I think he had everything. You know, the normal thing is like, of course, everyone, right? Maybe is really good but annoying or whining or you know something. You know,
that's
like
me. That's me for real.
Yeah, but Forrest was like a calm with good comms and taking initiative and confident player, and yeah, it's an easy answer to that question, I think.
Yeah, good answer as well. I mean, I think his career would definitely show that, especially.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, so eventually you move on to SK, a lot of very good names there, which was probably maybe the better of all of your teams in 1.6. You stayed there for a long time, for several years, and you end up finally getting the major, the 1.6 major in 2011, which is different from Go's majors. So for me and Tony, as new people, we only know the Go majors. This was more the major in this sense was just a big tournament, right? It was like, yeah. But you end up in SK, you bring Spawn with you as well. Now, it did take a while from joining this team to getting the major win in 2011. And I think in my research, it does seem like sometimes your career in 1.6 is sort of thought of as like you were consistently very, very, very good. But sometimes those final, like the big trophies, sometimes you never really got like when everybody thought like this guy's definitely the best. Like maybe it never really crossed into that hurdle. Do you think there's a reason for that? Do you think there's a reason why those very big tournaments maybe didn't go your way?
Yeah, we lost a lot of finals. It was very tough. You know, it's one of the worst things that you're losing a final. It's like the last thing you want to lose. I'd rather go out the quarterfinal, honestly. But no, I don't know. Like I remember the team in the beginning, 2007, we were pretty bad. I think we won one tournament that year, but it was so much chaos within that team. First of all, we had Wilden and Snydan, who were both famous for being IGLs, and they didn't really work together that well back then, and it was a lot of like bullshit around that team, and we didn't play that good Counter-Strike. But I think we ended up winning one tournament in the end, but then we changed a few players. I think Wally, did he join at 10th Bowl 2008? And that's when we become a contender to win trophies for real, like for almost all tournaments we went to. We had at least the feeling that we could win an tournament again, and that I couldn't feel that in 2007. That's probably one of the toughest year during my career, 2007, I think. It's a long time ago, all this, but yeah, that's how how I look back at it right now.
It's probably a little weird to only just now really pull it out on a podcast after so long. Like memory recollection is like, oh, you only remember something the way that you remembered it last you tried. So now it's been sometimes
now, like I never talk about this stuff either, so it's hard to sometimes, like on rare occasions, I do look at some old games, but not from 2007, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, like listening to you right now, so I'm actually quite impressed that you seem to remember quite a lot of details, especially about like the tournament in Seoul. That's actually quite impressive to like have as long a career as you have. One of the in esports or in Counter-Strike, one of the longest careers probably still going. Yeah. But yes, two teams were very difficult for SK to beat during this period. And I don't know if you have them in your mind now that I'm mentioning this. It would be the Polish squads, which play, or the Polish squad, which played for Frag Executors and ESC, and it would be NAVI, the Ukrainian NAVI team. They were pretty consistently beating you guys, but they were also pretty much the only guys who were beating you pretty consistently. So what was this like? How was it play against these guys?
I mean, also like super good teams, right? I think when the Polish guys were always good, even from like during the whole Counter-Strike era when they first came back in 2005-ish, they were always good until the end of this Golden Five lineup, you know. But I think very good team play. They had a good structure. They had one of the best players in the world in Neo. They had everything, you know. And the same as we also had like a good IGL and then one of the best players in Forest and stuff like that. But, you know, every team with that structure and that, you know, the potential of having or having one of the best players in the world can change so much. And they were always hard to play against, hard to read. And NAVI, same goes there, you know. They kind of changed everything with the way they played. They played much more. They played in a different way. They were very tough to play against as well. Strong team that worked extremely hard, and they kind of came out of nowhere. I felt like, but tough teams. But I think that we were tough to play against too, you know. But I think we lost a lot of close games that could have gone either way. But you know, today in Counter-Strike, there's so many teams that is really, really good. Back then, you could only mention a few that could, you know, win trophies.
Actually, yeah, I do want to follow up on that because you mentioned a very different era from Counter-Strike than it is now, obviously. But it's the same thing where you guys are at that point considered like elite teams, right? These teams with players and pedigrees that are kind of unheard of. But in terms of you guys playing up against these teams we're talking about, how would you go about preparing? Because you don't have a refrag, you don't have a very reliable demo launching system. How would you guys go about going into a tournament and being like, okay, guys, we might face this team in the final, we got to be ready to go against them? Or was it more so a widespread preparation for these tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, it's much. You cannot compare today's preparation you do for a game that you did back then. Today is completely different when it comes to the tools you have, first of all, where you can see basically every nade being thrown the last 5 years, and the movement of every single player you can look like in a program. So it's super easy today to do like anti-threading and stuff like that. Back then, you had to take the experience from either playing against team or in practice or from the last official a demo. But it's you didn't do that. Like maybe you watched like a demo or like a game of the other team, but you cannot, like it's completely different. Yeah, but that's also like a tricky thing today, you know, because all of the teams, they have tools and they know that everyone is doing that, so you can like fake that you're doing the same thing. You cannot just trust programs and stats, you know. I've never been a big fan of that. I think my focus has always been on playing our game good and that they have to adapt to us instead of the other way. That's what kind of I have done my whole career.
There's someone you've mentioned quite a few times throughout this interview at this point. He's also very much connected to this whole project. He's pretty much the only reason we're sitting here right now. There's walle, someone who you and him go kind of hand in hand career-wise for a long time. Describe this relationship between the two of you. I
mean, well, I never knew him until I joined NIP in 2006, but he was also one of these I got super impressed by, you know, when I played with him the first time on practice, he could do this crazy stuff. He was like one of the best players during those years. Incredible hard worker, played so much. I remember him and me staying up, like him and me grinded the most out of anyone that I think I ever played with. And we both, him and me, were living together at the cafe as everyone else in our team back then in 2006. And we played for a long time together, and is one of the best teammates I have had for sure. Extremely good during those years, and a really good friend. We actually lived together. He moved to my city here in Strängnäs, and I think we lived together for a year as well in SK, 2008 or something like that, maybe 2007, 8, can't remember, something like that. We lived together for a year here.
Yeah, That is awesome. That is awesome to hear. He's a very great guy. If we're gonna,
So you're pretty acquainted personally too, you know. That's kind of a duo to that. You're very aware of each other as players and people at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we became very, very close. I mean, we kind of, we played together, we lived together, we partied with like everything we did was together. We traveled to all the tournaments together, so we became really close.
Yeah, because sometimes you hear about these stories about teammates or such who have stuck together for a long time, and you sort of feel like maybe they're just teammates, but then like the reality is a lot of the time they are very good friends, and they're people who like go along with each other for outside of Counter-Strike as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did stuff outside of the server, a lot as well, whatever it else, meeting up, have a barbecue, whatever, we did a lot. We spent a lot of time together. I even we have been on like vacations and stuff together with my old teammates.
Oh, wow.
That's not what you like do really today, I feel like.
Now, if I'm right, you were in this 1.6 time, were you an in-game leader? Am I wrong about that?
Yes, that's right. But I think in the beginning, walle was the IGL, for example, in NIP, and in SK the first year we had Vilden and Snydan who were IGLs, and after that I became the IGL for the rest of my career. Yeah.
Were there like differences between how you and walle wanted to play the game tactically that sort of created problems for you, or were you always entirely on the same page?
I think walle kind of. I loved his way of calling, I think I did the same. We're very similar. I think we see the game the same way, yeah.
But yes, how would you describe your own style of calling now as someone who is also a coach and who has worked with various different IGLs and different systems? How would you contrast your own system to how would you describe
I put a lot of trust in my players. I want the players to take a lot of initiative. I want them to, if they feel something, they should be free to do it. I don't want it to be super strict. I want it to be, I love the way of thinking, like play on the feeling, play on the moment and momentum and all of that. But overall, I think if a player, I know the player is feeling something, if they have a good spawn, whatever it is, they have to go for it and trust it. And even if it's 14-14 in a grand final on stage, they should, feel the same way and do with that and trust themselves.
Yeah, because that is sort of how IGLs are talked about a lot. You talk about loose and strict, where loose IGL might be more someone who builds up a system and relies on individual decision making, while a strict IGL is more someone who like they want a lot of control and they want to give a lot of instructions.
Yeah, I think the best way is to do the mix of that, because you have to play strict sometimes, especially against some teams. I also think it's better, like if you're the best team in the world, you should play a little bit more strict against opponents. I think that's when you have to play a bit smarter and outsmart the guys instead of risking of doing anything weird,
Tactically, what was the 1.6 game like compared to something in Go right now? Was it like have things become significantly more complicated, or
CS2? Sorry,
CS2.
We're two generations away now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit. I mean, the game now is much faster. There's also more grenades, molotov, a lot of shit that you have to think of, and I think back then it was much easier to make strats and make it work. Today it's much more complicated when it comes to lineups with nades. You didn't have much lineups back in 1.6. You basically throw like a nade on feeling. Today every player have like hundreds of lineups of different smokes and molotovs and flashes, and it's much more advanced now, for sure.
Yeah. So you talked about your own system. You talked about being a bit loose. Someone who you've worked with later on, if we're going to make a small time skip for now, you later worked with karrigan. You worked as his coach. He is also described as someone who might be a bit more loose, who might be relying on individual decision making. Do you see your own system in karrigan's system, or has there been significant differences between there?
No, for sure. For sure. He sees the game the same way I do as well. That's why we work so good together. I think we see the game exactly the same way. Very similar to my style of calling as well.
We're going to move on to Global Offensive and CS2 a bit later.
Oh, man, that stinks because I just want to talk more about karrigan. We're so close. We're so close. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Go ahead, Tony, if you want to go for something.
Yeah, we kind of did this in a way where we split the research up between the two different periods. So he covered almost practically your entire 1.6 career. I had to do the deep diving into what it was your Go career, because that you go from player into the coaching role, right? And that took you years to get there, actually. So before we get to that, it was 2012. Counter-Strike Global Offensive comes out. Your teammates, who were at that point considered some of the best players in the world, transitioned to that game pretty much seamlessly, right? You at that point are not exactly in your prime years as to where you're able to pick up a brand new game and play to that level that maybe you would want to. So did that have any effect as to why you didn't transition? Was there ever an opportunity for you to go as a player?
For sure, opportunities, especially in the beginning. Before I think in the beginning it was easy short for me because I think the game movement was shit. Everything felt bad to play. It was not fun. I didn't enjoy playing the game. So for me, it was an easy decision to not continue playing Counter-Strike back then. Even though I still missed it like a few times, the competitive part of everything, but the game was too bad. And that's not only me. Everyone said the same thing, you know. But some of the guys grinded it out and waited for some good updates. But it took some time until the game got playable. And also in the end, like I think I spent 2015 streaming on Twitch and stuff like that. I received some really good offers to start playing again as well from some of the world. But you know, I also got my first kid expected as the same time that happened. So I decided, like, yeah, maybe coaching is gonna fit that lifestyle a bit better. But I didn't realize coaching takes maybe even more time sometimes than playing. But I think in the end, it was the right decision for me to start to coach instead of playing again.
What did you do during the time period between 2012 and 2015 where you say you started streaming again? Were you in the Counter-Strike scene at all in esports, or were you just kind of taking a back seat and living life?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a completely different business. I worked within construction for like 2 years or something like that. Worked with like heights and everything. And I played a lot, and I started to stream, and I realized I missed that a lot. So the grind was back on.
Something I wanted to ask specifically about is in the transition between 1.6 and Global Offensive, Forest and GetRight obviously moved on to form this new NIP lineup, and they left the SK team at the same team as you shortly before the entire lineup disbanded. Was there ever an option for you to be part of that NIP lineup?
I mean, yeah, we had talks, but I didn't want to play, so like I didn't even consider it. But they were talks at the beginning for sure. But I can't believe how those guys actually wanted to play. I was so surprised. Like 1.6 is one of the best games ever made. I feel like the feeling in that game is amazing. It still is. And you started to play a game that was completely different and was full of shit. I couldn't enjoy myself playing it. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. So I know there was a lot of criticism of Global Offensive in the beginning. So you were one of the people critical of the change.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do agree that a change was needed. I just felt like obviously I didn't know that the game was going to be good in a year. Then I would also probably have grinded it out. But during that time, I couldn't play it. Like, there's no chance I could play the game. So I also back then, most of the guys lived home. You know, they didn't have an apartment. I had my own apartment. I had bills to pay, and back then the salary was not so good as well. So I couldn't really like take an offer of earning like a few $100s and play for fun, basically. It was not an option for me, as I needed to provide me and you know, to pay my bills basically, and it almost didn't even cover that in the beginning of Go.
Yeah, just a different point in life compared to your teammates.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. So when did you feel it was starting to get good again? Like, what was the change that was needed where you felt like, all right, maybe I can work in Global Offensive?
I mean, I can't remember when I can't really remember when the game got good because I didn't play it. It probably got good after a year, maybe even 2013. I don't know. But when I started to play a lot, it was in the end of 2014, and that's when I felt the game was good and fun to play. I enjoyed myself playing, and that's why I started to play again. I think it was a good. I wanted to play competitive back then, but I needed to grind a bit. So I think I grinded for like 8 or 9 months on Twitch. I played every day and streaming basically, and playing with a lot of different people. I played with my old teammates, Forrest and Get and those guys on stream sometimes too. And yeah, it was fun. It's still fun. The game is really good now too. I think it's a bit different in CS2 though. CS2, so I can't really say.
Yeah, and then you pretty much at that point put yourself back in the public eye. You were in people's minds. How did the FaZe offer come about? Was it a communication between you and the players? The players contacted you, or how did that actually formulate?
Yeah, because that wasn't during a time where I had some offers to play again, and they were not. They had like one tournament where they had like a good result, and pretty good players, a lot of potential, and I felt like, and back then I was calling, so coaches were IGLs basically, and for the first year I think I was IGL coaching FaZe, and that was extremely hard, I feel, because the way I coach, the way I called back when I played, I always took a role myself on the server, like I'm gonna go there myself and throw some nades and fake, and then I'm gonna tell the other guys to do something, and I couldn't do a role myself, and it was super hard to make. It was so hard to call, I felt like, from coaching. Even though it's supposed to be easier, I just feel like it's easier because I also like, I will jump first and come after me, trade me. You cannot do that stuff when you're like coach IGL, because I cannot tell Rain, hey, go die so the other guy can kill him. You cannot do that. But me myself, when I played, I could always die for someone to get the trade, to get the bomb planted and stuff like that. So I felt like it was super different, super fun though. I think it was very different. But the team also had a lot of problems in the beginning when it comes to communication. We were like the first international team.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't think I'm alone in this, Quack. You can maybe attest. I feel like a lot of people on the outside look at you standing behind FaZe these last, obviously intermittently, the last 8 years, and they think that you're just kind of there for the vibes. They think you're there to hang out. They're not really going to be saying much of anything, going into the practice server and bringing new ideas and things like that, when historically speaking, that is only your primary role is to be having input and being able to do these things.
Yeah, honestly, like most of the preparation when it comes to coaching is done before the match starts. During the match starts, it's mostly focused on how the guys, how they react to things. We obviously prepare everything before the game starts. Everyone knows what to do, and then karrigan extremely, like, he calls a lot in the team. He wants the structure in his own hands when it comes to a lot of the tactics he wants to do. Obviously, I came with ideas when it was rough times, for sure, but I think karrigan is like a really good IGL when it comes to, he always has something in his head that he wants to do. Sometimes it can obviously be drained for him, and when he needs help, but I think him and me had a really good relationship when it was time for me to call what to do, and yeah, but no, I think most of the stuff is done before the game starts when it comes to coaching on the practice server, and the chemistry in the team is something that I also feel is extremely important if you want to be the best team in the world. I feel like I want the guys to enjoy practice and make the players feel like they're looking forward to play with your friends as your teammates. I think it's much easier to have a good time in the team and make people feel good and confident, and all of that stuff goes kind of hand in hand, when it comes to team building.
Yeah, and this is something, the dynamic between you and karrigan is often, it's sometimes described as like karrigan is more the tactical guy and you're more the coach. You're there for the chemistry in particular. But that is maybe not the case then in that case. It's more a cooperative effort where you also have a lot of input, or had a lot of input into the tactical side.
Yeah, I also think it depends on the players you have in the team. Like in FaZe, for example, so there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that no one really knows about outside of the professional teams, it's kind of the same in every sport, honestly.
Yeah, because that is obviously the case that the coach has a lot of different responsibilities, and in other sports, as you say as well, it's also the case there. But you have a much larger support staff as well. So
True.
in Counter-Strike, maybe all of those responsibilities fall on you, at least early on. Nowadays, I would assume FaZe has a larger coaching staff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember the beginning when I coached, I was the manager too. I was manager, coach. I did social updates on social media. I had merch calls. It was a lot of different things. Then in the end, we added some much needed staff to the Counter-Strike team. So much easier for me and the guys to focus on what they should focus on.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to this. You mentioned earlier, before the FaZe offer sort of came through, you also did have some opportunities to be a competitive player in 2014, 2015. Because at that point you're only like two or three years out of the game. Surely it must have been possible to come back. So what were some of those offers? Is there any beans you can spill on us?
Yeah. I mean, the best offer I had back then was to reunite with my former teammates in NIP. There was serious talks about me going back there. Didn't happen though, as it was at the same time. I can't really remember exactly which time this was, but yeah, we had serious talks with that, and then I had a lot of different ones as well with a lot of good players. But I think there's also, because I never felt it 100% in going back playing, because of a big step for me. So when this coach offer came in kind of the same time, it felt much easier to take that way back in, because I still want to be competitive again and work with a team. But the coaching thing came in a really good timing for me, especially when I was waiting my first child. So it made it much, that probably took the decision for me to coach instead of playing.
Yeah, so you're a coach now. You're in FaZe. Things
I'm not coaching
are,
now.
as you say. No, right now, no, right. Sorry. In the story, in the timeline, we're gonna conceptualize the fact that it's 2016. Now you're on FaZe and you're coaching. You speak about how in the beginning it was a little bit difficult. It was an international lineup, basically the first international lineup to do it to this level, right? To do it to this extent. And interestingly enough, michael had built this team about a year or so, maybe give or take a little more or less, prior to joining FaZe. So it wasn't by any means a brand new project. It was pretty much the same one brought over and in from G2 and Kingwin. You were the in-game leading from the coaching role. michael had built the team, and many considered, at least publicly, Rain to be the team's captain, so to speak. So can you kind of speak about the dynamic inside of the server when you weren't doing the in-game leading? Was it actually Rain who took the reins of being some sort of a figure at the helm?
I think that's how it was, if I remember it correctly. Although I made, like, when I coached, I did all of the calling, as I could see the face all the time. So, but of course, there was a lot of mid-round decisions sometimes that someone had to take, and mostly Rain was one of those guys that were very open. And I mean, honestly, Rain is one of the easiest guys that I have ever worked with during my life. He's always the same. He always shows up with the same mood, same type of energy, and he never whines. He never complains. I mean, I'm a very good friend with Rain, so I don't want to tell him this stuff normally, because we joke.
Yeah.
But he's a really good guy. He's a really good player as well, and he reminds me a lot of FaZe that I played with in SK, because he was kind of the same guy, same type of calm personality, and
sure,
and kind of the same mood all the time, which is so easy to control, because Counter-Strike is a lot about being in a good mood when it comes to play tournaments. Not maybe mood, but you need to have your head in the right place. And Rain have a very strong mentality when it comes to that. Yeah.
Do you think there's a Scandinavian metric, like a component to that, where maybe you're closer to Rain than you are to someone like Brokey, because of the, like, sort of the shared where you grew up, where you came
closeness,
from?
I guess.
Culture,
yeah. I mean, it's not the same as like Finnish players. Finnish players are like always the same. They're like every single Finnish player is like the same.
A clone of the same person.
Yeah, it could be the same person every time. Yeah, but like with Rain, I don't know. Like he's just so easy to be around and play with. So it's kind of natural for him to be. When he's talking, people listen, and when he have a call, it's gonna be, you trust it. He's a good guy.
Yeah, so you joined that team, and there was already, when you had gotten there, a little bit of an issue that was starting to build up between Michael and Fox in the AWP department. That was something that Michael had spoken about himself, actually, and I want to kind of get your thoughts and your opinions on that, because you joined this team, and I want to know how long it took before either you saw that to be the case, or it became too big of an issue for somebody to deny, because as far as Michael had described it, it almost come down to like a him or me situation.
Think back, I don't know how long I worked with Michael, but I don't know how many tournaments, but was it only one tournament?
It wasn't very long. It wasn't all that long.
Time, no.
Yeah, so I'm not completely sure like how it went down. The only thing I could feel like in the beginning of that team that we needed something less. I think it was a lot of different views of playing the game and a lot of different views of how to do stuff. And we were so inconsistent when it comes to only being on like individual level and on a team, because we could play really good with that team too, but it could also play extremely bad. And it was rough. The communication was one of the biggest things, especially with Fox. He didn't. I mean, Fox was a great guy, funny guy, but also the communication from Fox like was tough in the beginning. He's from Portugal, so he was not used to speaking in English, which was very hard for him, I think. And then we had like jkaem back then, who was also not like, he was pretty shy and like a bit drawn back. I think he was a bit nervous, back in the beginning.
Sure.
Obviously, he went on to prove himself, but I think we had a lot of issues in that first FaZe team that I coached, and we didn't have a good enough team and a good enough team.
Yeah, and you sorted that out really quickly. You quickly moved on to allu in place of Fox later on, as kioShiMa had joined from Michael once the quote unquote AWP clash was figured out. So it's funny to think about now.
Yeah. Sorry. Like I remember, like when we took Kio, for example, I felt like we needed some experience in the team of players that accomplished something and have won tournaments, and Kio was the perfect guy to get in that time. allu was also like very strong mentality and very good match player. He had some tough times on practice sometimes, but like on match, he always showed up, and he played with the big balls player. I enjoyed playing with allu a lot. He's a really funny guy.
That's going to go on the title. That's going to be a part of
we slowly upgraded the team, I felt like,
You definitely did. You upgraded literally every department that you needed to at that point, except for the calling aspect. That was the one thing you guys were missing at that point. The pieces were all there. The puzzle was pretty much complete. And the grace of God, really, Astralis benched karrigan. Karrigan is on the free market at that point, which is also kind of crazy, because in doing my research, I found that he was playing obviously at the same time as you, 1.6, not maybe for as long as a time, but there was even a time where you had met in the finals in jkaem. It was the esports M finals where he actually beat you in a 2-1, which is pretty crazy to think about, a guy who was playing towards the end of your career who had taken you out at the very, very final step. That's the guy you end up signing as your first big name IGL. So talk to me kind of about how the dynamic between you and him has grown over the last 8 years, and just what he brings to a team, not even necessarily as a caller, but he's grown in the last 8 years as a person, I can assume, as well.
For sure. I think, when him and me are talking about like 1.6, we always see it differently. But I remember like one of the tournaments that I won, one of the biggest ones in the end, like the major ESWC, right? I think he got the MVP of that tournament. So every time I say that I won that tournament, he said, "Yeah, but I had got the MVP."
That's great.
He's a funny guy. He's also very vocal. He's very social and a very close friend of mine. And in the beginning we shared room as well before the single room came. So we shared room like on hotels and stuff during tournaments. So we discussed Counter-Strike basically like nonstop in the beginning, and he has grown a lot as well as a person, and as a girl, he's extremely hardworking. One of the most hardworking guys that I ever been with too. He always thinks strike, he looks Counter-Strike, he plays Counter-Strike.
Welcome back, everyone. We had some audio issues, but things are going to sound a lot better from now on. So if you were annoyed by that earlier in the episode, you can now rest easy and listen on to these smooth talking voices. So Tony, I'll let you pick up where you left off.
Yes, so we dropped off talking about the addition of karrigan. You bring on an in-game leader. You have an AWP player who is self-sufficient in his own right with actual accolades to go along with that. And you have players with a lot of autonomy. They can make their own moves, and communication is something you guys have worked on now for a year and a half. kioShiMa is benched just at the end of 2016, which was completely reverted less than a month later, actually, and jkaem was the one then put onto the bench in his place. So from an outside perspective, that is a pretty jolting thing to see happen in such a short time frame. So can you kind of give me a look into how that decision first came about as to you want to bench a player, and then in addition to that, why it was reverted?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of hard to remember, but I think it was like this, like they had different strength and different positions, and we just needed a player to play a different position, which the other player didn't really play that well. Something like that. And Kio was like the more experienced player. He had some, he had a lot of good skills in to handle some of the things, and jkaem had different skills and a different way of handling stuff. And the problem with jkaem was, I think, like back then he was like on officials in the beginning. He was pretty nervous. He kind of shut down a little bit, and he had some struggles in his private life back then. So I think we just felt like we were missing something, and then I can't remember who we took. Was it
it was karrigan that you brought in, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Did he have a say? I'm sure he also probably had a pretty big say on that decision after having joined, seeing what was going wrong, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe, but I think so. karrigan, he played with both Kio and jkaem. I remember. I think we played with jkaem in like E-League in Atlanta, and then we played with Kio a bit longer, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I can't really remember.
Yeah, he had a month with jkaem, as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty sure it was one LAN event that he had with jkaem.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I still felt like that time we had some good results for being us. We could feel the improvement right away when karrigan joined the team. We could feel it really helped to get an IGL of his caliber to join, and we started to play good. But there were still some pieces missing to become the best, because the goal was always to be number one, not to be like reaching quarters or semifinals or whatever. We wanted to win tournaments and be number one. That's what we all wanted in FaZe from the beginning, from the day one. So we all felt that we needed some more changes to achieve that, or to be able to lift trophies.
Yeah, I guess, and one of those changes you guys ended up making eventually was a superstar, a blockbuster, right? I mean, obviously you had players in the team that were capable of taking games, but you didn't really have somebody that were able to take tournaments, you know what I mean, in that regard. So you ended up benching, or actually, excuse me, AZ ended up leaving for North.
Yes.
I will rephrase. And simultaneously, you guys had then had the opportunity to sign NiKo. But before that, there were conversations that Scream was actually in talks with you guys. That was publicly reported on.
But some good research.
Yes, I was also aware that it didn't necessarily not go far, but it was something that I think the team was pretty serious on before NiKo even came into the picture, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it was before we tried to get NiKo for some time. It was not just possible to buy.
Of course.
But I remember we played, I think we had 1 day or maybe 2 days of practice with Scream, and it felt pretty good. But then I think the opportunity to get NiKo came, and we went for him instead. That's basically how it was, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Scream at that point was still very active. He was still like actively playing very well.
Yeah.
Just been mentioned on G2 where he actually won some various events. That is the NiKo signings. Obviously, it's one of the biggest signings of all time. Like it's one of the biggest, most blockbuster move. It's one of the.
It was one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive single player ever bought at that point in time.
Yeah, both in terms of money and in terms of like how big that move was. I had a question in my mind, but now I've forgotten about it.
Well, I knew, like when we got NiKo, I knew that that's gonna help us to to reach what we all wanted, right? Like NiKo still is an amazing player. You know, he can carry games himself, and we wanted to build the game, you know, around him a lot, so he could shine and so he could play his game, because he's so good, so he can, you know, he wants to do a lot of stuff himself as well, and that was the missing piece of the puzzle to reach that last part to win tournaments. And I think we won Star Ladder pretty fast after that, and a lot of finals in a row, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah. And this is what's cool about being able to do these interviews so long after these things have actually happened, is that it's been 7 years now since you guys brought NiKo on initially. He was a kid. He was 20 years old. I'm 22 years old. I'm still a kid. I'll stand by that. He was a kid in this team, relatively speaking, and a player who had a notorious, I guess, he was just known to be a very vocal player. We'll say that much, right? So he joins this team, karrigan obviously being at this point even considered a veteran IGL by many standards, or at least a veteran player. How did the clash of ideas come early, or did it happen at all? Was he initially more respectful, or was he instantly open and ready to challenge ideas and make the team better in any way?
No. NiKo didn't call anything in the beginning, basically. He did some mid-run calls here and there, but NiKo didn't want to be IGL at all. And it was all about karrigan being the IGL. There was never a question of changing that, especially in the beginning. And I mean, NiKo is also super easy to work with like that, you know. He's a guy that he have a very strong voice in a team, for sure. He's from a culture where like they're used to that, and we didn't have a problem at all with clashes. I think what clashed the most is in the end of that lineup before karrigan got benched, when it comes to losing some, you know, one round the other way. I think he wouldn't have get benched. That's where like the discussions was tough, you know. And I think I stepped down as a coach. I took a break when we benched karrigan, because I knew it's gonna be hard without him too. And I felt like this is gonna be not as good anymore. And we tried to make it work even when I stepped down as a coach and karrigan left. I think when NiKo started a little bit of trying to be IGL and all of that, it was some tough time within the team. There was a lot of we kind of lost the structure when he left, you know. With my karrigan, we benched him. We lost all of the heart of the team, basically. So the guy struggled for some time. Eventually, they won a few tournaments. They had the high ceiling. They could play really good, but it was not consistent enough, unfortunately. So but I wasn't even coaching then, so I was not like 100% within the team. I was traveling with them still sometimes. I've always been that, but I didn't have any input on the players or team during that time when I stepped down as a coach.
It was signing NiKo was not the only move you made then, which turned you into a super team. Because you did pick up Olaf and Guardian in particular.
Olaf, Guardian, those guys, whatever.
That was like, that was sick. I was really happy when we could get that team together. I felt like it was the perfect team in that sense. People were a little bit worried that, you know, Olaf Prime have been, and Guardians Prime have already been, but they both stepped up. And like, I remember the first tournament was tough. We went to DreamHack Malmö, I think, and we had a pretty tough first showing.
Actually, your first two events you won flawlessly without dropping a map, at least on LAN. It was ESL 1 New York.
No, we played DreamHack Malmö before that. With that
you did.
Guardian and Olaf. Yeah, and we lost to. I remember we lost to these Russian guys. I don't remember which team they play under back then. But anyway, I think then we went to E-League and to New York.
And then you crushed.
We crushed. We stomped everyone. And
look at this guy telling RobbaN what he played and what he didn't play.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
No, that was super cool. It was a really fun team. You know, everyone was really, really hungry to win. We had these two best players in the world or three.
Flip side, and it was online. Come on, guys.
No,
I'm not losing it.
Wait, I'm gonna have to Google this myself.
This is what Liquipedia is saying, at least. This is Liquipedia saying it was a DreamHack. It was Masters Las Vegas, and it was a qualifier. It was a flip side, you guys.
Here, let me see. DreamHack Masters.
I think you might be in the wrong year.
Oh, I might be in the wrong year?
2017, right?
Where are we at?
Yeah, that's the wrong year. Yeah, I think.
Oh, yes. Okay, I see. It was Oh, Gambit. That's what I thought. Okay, I thought I saw flip side, and that was it. It was Gambit.
Anyway, I think that team was crazy, and it could have been so much better. Like, it could have been, losing this Boston final and the Katowice final in the way we lost it. It kind of crushed the feeling in the team.
Let's rip the Band-Aid off. We may as well. We're already here. We're at that point in the episode. You're standing behind this team, and you went into this tournament. You were heavy favorites. You were playing all the way through, yada, yada, yada. It's been said over and over again. But what hasn't been talked about is that you are the coach behind these guys while this is happening. You're standing there and witnessing this, and you can't even say a word. You have to wait until the timeout, or you have to wait until after the game, or wait until overtime commences. How was it being in that position, and what were you saying, and what could you say to a team in that position?
You mean after the final?
No, during the final.
Yeah, during the final, you can still do some stuff, but at the point in the Boston Major, we had it in our own hands. Obviously, we fucked up in the end for sure. In the same time as everyone were against us in the whole crowd and wanted Cloud9 to win, it really got to us, I don't want to say that we throwed it, but we kinda did in the way we ended the last rounds and how we played them, and that's something I think that also have made a really good and important impact on karrigan as an IGL. To that every round is full focus and not to take anything for granted and to close a game out, because in the end, the last years with FaZe, I think we have been really strong when it comes to closing out games, closing out overtimes, winning this close finals that we have after that happened. So I think it was a much less we needed to learn a lesson during Boston, and it was very, very, very tough. Very tough to lose in Boston. Sure. It still is. When I still see stuff from it, it still sucks. But Katowice was kind of the same thing. That was like the same feeling, and it was like a few months after, and we got exactly the same way. Like when, it was very tough as well.
Did you end up watching the? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it was very hard to repair. Like after that, Katowice was very hard to repair that team. It was very hard.
Did you end up watching the Counter-Strike Throughout the Years video, the documentary that was released, where olofmeister for the first time ever supposedly went back and watched the Boston final? I thought that was a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I saw it. But I have not rewatched the Boston finals though. I think that's the only game I haven't rewatched.
Wow.
Okay. So I thought it was like for show that he would say that. To be honest, I genuinely did, but I can understand the feeling as to how that might be to look back.
I mean, I could probably, to be honest, I could probably go back and rewatch it now.
Right.
But I never did.
Torture.
It's torture. Yeah, it's rough.
It must have been. People always talk about karrigan and NiKo missing out in that major, and I think that is almost somewhat a bit in hindsight that people think about it. At that point, someone I think who would have been very impacted by this major loss would have been Guardian, who was already a very successful in NAVI. Won pretty in his time in NAVI. He won pretty much as a pro player can win in
all
team.
but a major.
Yeah, and
I don't know how many finals he lost. I think he lost like 4 major finals or something.
I think it is. I think it is the most lost major finals that any player has.
Yeah, poor guy.
Yeah, that must have impacted him like crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Shortly after this. Sorry, Tony.
No. I was just going to say that we pretty much spoke about already how the karrigan benching and the team was not really the same. You guys had a period where it got awkward and you would step down, but this is kind of where your floor is open. We want to speak about the ESIC situation, where obviously the notorious coaching bug had just dropped, and you had received a 5.5-month 2 major ban. that had actually expired in March of 2021 before you came back. So do you remember the game in question where this had actually occurred with you and what had happened?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like I remember the first time I heard about it. Like my boss called me. He said, "Hey, there's this coaching bug thing that people are talking about, and I just want to make sure that like you have not been up." I'm like, no, fuck that. I would never use a bug. You know, I said, because I couldn't remember it. Like when he asked me, I'm like, I had completely forgot about it. Like the stuff that happened was so long time ago. And then when I sat down and thinking about this, and I saw some clips of someone, I'm like, yeah, fuck, I remember I had that stuff, you know, but I didn't, you know, think of it. And then went some days, and then it got serious, you know, because I got accused of cheating, basically. I'm like, I would never cheat. First of all, there is no chance I would cheat. And I was very surprised how they handled the whole situation, because basically they never spoke to me. ESIC never reached out to me personally. They never asked for my explanation. They didn't ask for anything. They just boom, cheated, fuck off, banned. I couldn't even explain myself, basically. And it was terrible, because I've built a name for myself in this scene for a long time, and they could basically destroy it, and you know, without even doing a real investigation of it, in my opinion. Of course, I still did it wrong. I was still on the server when the bug occurred, but first of all, I messaged the admin when it happened. I have prints of that I sent to them afterwards. I told them that I had a bug. We lost 16-1. I did what all the players said, that I didn't share any information officially.
You weren't a very good cheater if you did. That's really, I guess, what we can bring this back to.
Karrigan always says that. Like I think he had one frag. He's like, yeah, thanks for helping me getting one frag, you know. No, but like I think it's super silly situation, and it's a shame that my name is in the same document as people that actually abused it for real. That people that had a system in place to cheat, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is now. I kind of don't give a shit about that anymore. It just sucks that when you Google my name, it looks like I have been using a
Valve banned.
Exactly. But I was very pissed for a very, very long time, and obviously missing out on coaching in the major and stuff affected me a lot, you know. And for what, like, why? I also tried, like, when I remember when it happened, when I went back, you can see in the demo as well, like I quit and I come back, you know, I tried to get rid of it, you know, but I still got it. And I'm like, fuck it. Guys, I'm going to mute. I was on mute the whole game. I didn't say a word, and I watched the game from a weird perspective, getting one round, and that's it. And then I had it one more time, according to the admins. But then when I quit, I got back. So it was not during, like, it was only during warm up, you know, and so they didn't count that in. But of course, in hindsight, I should have quit. But writing to the admins and doing what I did is, for me, kind of the same thing. We played online matches all the time back then. Like every day we had like Pro League, Face It, like ECS. Like we had stuff.
I was waking up to watch them, man, before a high school class.
It's just very, very unfortunate situations, and it is what it is now.
You there was some people who were saying things like, oh, but we've known about this bug for years, and like people have been abusing it, and it's like, I don't perceive that has been thought about like at all. Like I think to a large degree there are some people who definitely abused it, but I feel like the width of how big this scandal was and how many people were affected and banned, I feel like that was a bit over the top. You were definitely probably one of the ones who were most wrongfully impacted of it. The other one I can think of is Team Spirit's coach Hallie, who did the same thing. He got the bug in like one game, and he just turned his camera around and stared into the wall like the entire game.
Exactly.
And still got banned and couldn't play the major, where Spirit did extremely well. So like that must have been quite heartbreaking. You did mention it was very difficult for you in the Antwerp Major, where FaZe Clan finally win their major, karrigan finally wins his major, Rain. Do you consider that you also won that major, or do you think because you weren't there?
I feel a part of it. You know, I was at the boot camp before we went to the major. I also was on the stage in Antwerp. I was there. I was with the team. I spoke to the team, not during the games, obviously, because I wasn't allowed, because I was banned. But But other than that, I think I was a part of it. Yeah. Winning it, no, I cannot say that. But I think I was a part of it. Yeah, for sure.
Valve employees see you at the event. And they're like, get him out of here.
Yeah.
He's
Throw
banned.
him out.
Yeah.
Throw him out. Fucking cheater.
He's on the list. Yeah.
Dirty cheater.
Seriously though, like sometimes when I read comments, I still see someone writing like,
Wow.
cheater. I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Don't mind. Don't pay no mind.
it is. Yeah.
no
That's a bit extensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that must have been super difficult, but like.
I mean, I was still so happy. I remember I was super happy when like it was really good to be there and to share the the moments after winning that with the guys. So much deserved for everyone in that team for sure, winning that trophy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So we move on a bit. You are now the manager, so to speak. Ish of FaZe. Your official title is head of CS, I think, right?
Yeah.
Where does that place you? Like, what is your role in the team? Do you still have an input on how they play, or is it literally just managerial?
I don't have much input on how they play. I still discuss Counter-Strike with some of the guys like Neo and karrigan, especially at events. We always talk Counter-Strike, but I still talk with them from time to time from home. I have a little bit of a different life now as when I was coaching. Also, I have never really touched on this officially, but the reason I stepped down from coaching is because I'm living. I have 3 kids, and I went separate ways with the mother of the kids. So we do 1 week thing, and that's why I kind of had to step down as coach, because it's not possible for me when I have the kids obviously. So, but now it's been a year, so now I try to travel to all the events when I don't have the kids, and it's working pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's been a long time. It's been 8 years for you. You've seen so many players come in and out of FaZe in general, and kind of harkening back to the fact that this was a pioneer of international Counter-Strike, this whole project. What was it like as a coach to have to manage all of these different personalities and backgrounds? Did you find yourself having to grow as a person in your own regard when it came to managing all this?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is one of the trickiest things for coaching, because I think you have to treat every player differently. You have to talk to a player differently based on the personality the player is. Some people you can be very straight and saying, hey, you have to improve on this and you cannot do this, blah, 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 and they take it good. And some players you have to take a different approach with. You have to have a different voice. You have to be strong on some of the players, and you can be a bit more soft on the others. It's you cannot do the same against everyone, and you have to have a different bond with every player in the team. And I think that's one of the most important things as a coach too, to have this bond and make the players trust you and make them feel good. I think that's very, very important thing for that I had to do. And I had a really good bond with all of the players. I think that we were very close. We're still very close. So yeah.
Do you see any significant change in how the long running players of the teams have been? Like, you've had karrigan back and forth twice now, and Rain has been a consistent part of this team for almost it's coming up on a decade with the squad next year, 9 years with FaZe at that point. Do you see any change in how they from the start to the end, so to speak?
No, I think they're both very, very hungry to win. They're both they're working hard, they're motivated, they want to win, and that's what's driving them. And when you see a change in the hunger of winning, I think that's when it's time for a player to call it, right? Right now we're not close to, they are not close to feeling that. So I don't see any change coming now, no.
Yeah, and the changes, I guess, so to speak, in players are, I guess, I don't want to say few and far between, but you've known these guys for as long as you have, and you are the one who now has changed in your role. They've been the players, and you were the coach, then the manager, now the head of CS, and you have Neo stepping in, somebody who, again, you're very familiar with. You followed up in the pattern of bringing on former 1.6 competition into the fray. So how was it when you guys first had Neo as a trial, as an in-game leader, as far as I'm aware, that's the role he was functioning in, and then now as a coach?
I mean, me and Neo goes way back. I think we played Counter-Strike together. We played in the same team 2003, I think 2003 or 4. We have been friends for a very, very, very long time, and I think we played for a year, like the whole 2003. I played with 3 Polish guys. Maybe that was the first international team. But
right, the original FaZe.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun times. Obviously we only played online. We played like practice and the team. 2 Swedes, 3 Polish guys. We spoke English when we played, and we played a lot of public back then because that was the only thing you could play. It was before deathmatch time, before anything. So we played public together, me and Neo, for many, many late nights and early mornings. So we have been very close friends since then. And we have always been hanging out on events, so I know him very, very good. And I think, he's a really, really good guy. He's also hardworking, and he's doing a great job in FaZe as the coach right now.
You both have your playing careers behind you. Is there still arguments over who was best between the two?
That's the only thing I give up, and Neo was the best when it comes to skill. It's impossible for me to try to win that fight.
Yeah.
But I can probably win in some other fights, but not in that one. And Neo was probably arguably one of the, if not the best, together with maybe Forrest and 1.6, I would say. So yeah, extremely, extremely good, skilled guy.
Yeah, I just kind of think you guys have a similar energy behind you too. So it was when I saw you fade out of the team, I was like, oh man, who are they gonna get as coach? And I saw Neo as the announcement for the interim coach, and I was like, they basically just got a Polish RobbaN. It's like they get the perfect fit.
Yeah, he's good. He's really good, and the guys like him. And I think it took some time for him to find his level of, the way he wants to be, because every coach is different. Mm-hmm. I don't want to compare myself with the way I'm coaching to his way, but he's the person he is, and he does it his way, and it's perfectly fine that way too.
Something I wanted to ask, which is maybe a good ending point for the main part of this episode. You've gone back and forth between coaching and managing quite a lot since you came back to Counter-Strike. Well, twice, but
yeah.
And we are seeing your generation of players. You're sort of at the forefront. Like the first guys who came in are still here. They can go on for quite a while. We're seeing also players getting, older and older. A few years ago, it felt like there was a limit at 30 years old, and then you had to do something else. But now we have coaches well into their 40s. We have karrigan pushing.
Snacks being picked up by G2.
Yeah, yeah. We have karrigan pushing into like the mid 30s, and he looks nowhere near stopping. What I'm wondering is if there is a future for you to go back as coaching, like as a coach, or do you think this might be the role where you eventually retire?
Yeah, I might kick a player myself and start playing again too. Yeah. No. For sure. I think coaching definitely you can do when you become older. But I think as a player too, I think it's definitely possible. Although I have to be in, if you're getting like closer to like 33 plus, I think being IGL makes the most sense, as you have so much experience in that age. And I think it's going to be very hard to be like top 5 offer or whatever if you're 38. I think that's going to be very, very tough. But I think IGL, as long as you have the motivation and dedication and the hunger to win, I think that's what's going to be the difference if you want to keep playing the game. For a lot of people, a lot of players that have a short career, they kind of feel accomplished already, and they feel like they have won a tournament or whatever they have won, I don't know, and they kind of lose the hunger of winning. And if you lose that, it's very hard to come back from, I think.
For you personally, is the door shut on coaching, or do you think there is some future?
No. I think I could coach again. During the right circumstances, not right now, but yeah, in the future, who knows? I would love to. I think coaching is it's extremely fun. It's you're still involved, even though you're not playing. You are involved in the team in a different way that you can actually have some good input in the guys and the players to win tournaments. So I feel like, hell yeah. If you never know, but I would definitely be open to it in the future for sure.
That is amazing to hear. I think we are getting about ready to wrap up this episode. We have some people who need to leave and do other things. Tony, do you have any final remarks?
But from top to bottom, I think it was incredible. Your wisdom kind of shined through. It's really interesting now to get a perspective on a lot of the things that have been spoken about from perspectives outside of a coach. Like, you watched it all unfold from an outside perspective directly. So having a lot of these insights has been very, very helpful. So I appreciate you coming on and talking to us about these things.
Yes, and the
Thank
question.
you.
I'm sorry, I was a horrible host there for the second time. I think I did the same thing in the other episode we recorded. So, yeah. The thing we like to ask people at the end is, who do you think should be the next guest on this show?
Oh, does it have to be Scandinavian guy as well, or?
We'd like it, but you could name absolutely anyone you want.
I think you should have. Who should we take here?
So many options. He's like going through the catalog of all the players he's familiar with at this point.
Forrest, for sure. Take Forrest.
Yeah, he's got a lot of interesting things to say. Thank you for coming on, RobbaN. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's surreal to talk to someone like who is, one of the greats of all time. So
prolific.
Thank you so much.
It is a surreal situation. It feels. I have to pinch myself. I might wake up any moment.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Because socially.
In Strängnäs. Okay. Socially, they can find me on my Twitter, RobbaN, or my Instagram, FaZe RobbaN. I think it is. I'm pretty bad using my social media. I have to improve there. But yeah, you can always write me there.
And with that, we draw to a close. That's a wrap on Leetspeak. This has been a fantastic episode once again, RobbaN. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tony. Obviously, Quack. Joining me as well. This has been a phenomenal experience, and until we see you guys next, whenever that may be, see you later.